Fear itself. The gang goes to a Halloween party that turns out to be scarier than they expected.
We open with Xander lamenting that his jack-o'-lantern isn't as good as he wants it to be.
Buffy interrupts to mope out loud about her experience with Parker.
I was just thinking about the life of a pumpkin. Then someone comes along, cuts you open, and rips your guts out.
Xander goes to get a scary movie for them to watch, but pulls out Fantasia instead of Phantasm, which made me want to go watch Phantasm.
They talk about going to a party where you have to go through a scary maze first.
And Xander is excited to go, because his life sucks.
Buffy decides to cut out early and goes moping around outside.
And she's walking around town when a demon pops out, and she punches it, but it turns out to just be a dude in a mask, and he is upset, despite jumping out to attack a random stranger dressed as a monster.
And he displays some impressively bad acting.
Jeez, that hurt. What the hell's wrong with you, lady?
It was an unintentionally stupid moment.
The next day in the cafeteria, Willow talks to Buffy about how she's having trouble advancing in her magic stuff, even though she's already done tons of incredibly dangerous things.
And Buffy says if it's too much, to just not do it. But Willow says she'll know when she reaches her limit.
Which sounded unlikely.
I thought this was going to turn to an episode where Willow's magic went haywire, based on that statement.
Oz comes in and shows that he's the most intelligent one of the bunch by telling Willow that he's worried that she's messing around with some dangerous stuff.
And he references the fact that he's a werewolf, which I'm pretty sure hasn't been mentioned for quite a while.
And I had honestly completely forgotten about that. But Oz says he'll back Willow with whatever she decides to do, showing that he's not that intelligent after all.
Buffy sees Parker across the room, and it causes her to drop her food and run out of the room, which further confirms my suspicions that the writers are going to go all in on this.
Willow talks to her and says she'll feel better when they go to the party, and she might even meet someone. Buffy says she doesn't want to meet anyone, and Giles might want her to go out on patrol anyway, even though he's not her watcher anymore, and he seems to be letting her operate independently at this point, so I don't know.
We cut to Giles, decked out in his Halloween costume with a bowl of candy.
Even though it looks like it's the middle of the day.
And I'm surprised he would go anywhere near candy again after band candy.
Yeah, but he got to bang Joyce, so maybe he wants something like that to happen again. He seems to be excited for Halloween, which was supposed to be funny, but it just felt very out of character. And he says nothing will happen that day because supernatural creatures avoid activity on Halloween, which was an idea that was presented back in the first Halloween episode, which involved a massive supernatural event occurring on Halloween.
And when Buffy brings that up, Giles pretty much brushes her off.
A bunch of stereotypical 90s frat boys are setting up for the Halloween party while listening to stereotypical 90s music. And Zack finds a mystical symbol in a book that he says they should paint.
Meanwhile, Xander's getting ready for the party when he's confronted by Anya, who says that she said she was over him because she thought it was what he wanted to hear. The conversation turns to her wondering why he's on this show at all.
They go to college, you don't. They no longer live at home. You do.
Well, hey.
Xander mentions the Halloween party that he was going to with the gang, and he asks Anya if she wants to go. She says yes, and he tells her she'll need a scary costume.
Back at school, Buffy goes to retrieve assignments from Professor Walsh, since she missed class due to moping, and Walsh tears her a new one, and says if she misses another class, she's out.
When Walsh leaves, Riley encourages Buffy to get things in order.
Oh, you seem like the kind of person who makes things really hard on themselves.
And Buffy says, haven't you been watching the past 3 seasons of this show? This is all I do.
He says she should have fun on Halloween because it's when the ghosts and goblins come out, and Buffy responds by saying,
That's actually a misnomer.
That's not what misnomer means. I legitimately couldn't tell if this was the writers trying to play up Buffy's ditziness, which they do very inconsistently, or if they actually thought that's what that word meant. And Buffy thanks him for the encouragement.
And the assignments.
Yeah, I guess.
Gotta be accurate. In the frat house, they're finishing the mystical design, but Xander and Oz are too dumb to think anything of it, even though they're right in the room and have seen plenty of evil magic symbols result in demons and stuff.
Oz cuts himself while trying to fix the stereo and drips blood onto the symbol, causing it to do this, which somehow no one notices.
Yeah, he's spraying blood all over the room, and they're all just cool with that.
Joyce helps Buffy with her Little Red Riding Hood costume, and they reminisce about Buffy's dad taking her trick-or-treating when she was a kid.
And Buffy says, oh, nice, another topic for me to mope about. Thanks, Mom.
She talks about how all men abandon her or whatever. Joyce tries to cheer her up by talking about how alone she felt after the divorce, and mentions how John Ritter turned out to be a robot, which I didn't think they'd ever bring up again.
It was nice to hear the conversation not be Buffy wallowing in self-pity for once.
That's true, and her mom didn't seem like as big of an idiot as she used to.
High praise.
She reminds Buffy that she has a bunch of friends and nothing to be afraid of.
We cut to the party, and a guy trying to get laid leads a girl over to a bowl of peeled grapes, saying they're eyeballs. But when she takes off her blindfold, they are actually eyeballs.
Xander meets Buffy in a James Bond costume and references the events of Halloween, and then Willow and Oz show up. Willow references gingerbread, and Oz references your question from Halloween.
What if someone was dressed up as God? Yeah. Suddenly, the army guys pop out of the bushes and perform their usual function of just showing up but not doing anything.
And the music tells us they're not just wearing costumes.
Nice costumes.
Why are they walking around with guns in the open? What are they doing? It doesn't make sense.
So the show must be doing its job by making you ask these questions.
It would be doing its job if it would get around to answering some of them.
Buffy latches onto the first chance of self-pity she can find when she starts whining that everybody has a date except her.
Boo-hoo. At the party, we see everyone panicking and running around for some reason. And then a kid trips and falls down the stairs and I guess dies. I don't know.
Some pretty good lighting going on during this whole thing.
When the gang gets there, they don't see anyone.
But they find actual blood and a real tarantula before being attacked by 90s CGI.
After they disperse, Oz picks one up off the ground and finds that it is a fake rubber bat.
And they hear a demonic voice yell, "Release me."
Anya shows up to the frat house in a rabbit costume, but finds that the door has disappeared. She sees a woman screaming in a window, which magically seals itself.
It was awesome. Willow says they need to get out of the house, and they find a frat guy in a closet saying, "It's alive."
But he doesn't explain what he's talking about. Because why would he do that?
He's in shock, didn't you hear? There was interference with solar radiation. Some shit.
A plastic skeleton comes to life and attacks Buffy with a big knife. She beats it up, and it reverts to its plastic form. The kid goes back into the closet, and the door disappears.
Buffy tells the rest of the gang to go find Giles to figure out what's going on,
while she goes upstairs to look for other people.
And it turns out Anya is already at Giles' house.
And she tells him they need to rescue Xander. She explains what she saw, and he immediately seems to know what caused the window to seal itself, which didn't seem plausible, given all the weird stuff that happens.
He's a smart guy. Back at the house, Willow is mad that Buffy's telling them to leave, feeling that her newfound magic knowledge can help them, and she's not a sidekick.
She suggests casting a spell.
It conjures an emissary from the beyond that lights the way.
Buffy accurately says that Willow's spells are not reliable, and Willow storms off like a Buffy, with Oz in tow.
And Xander finds out that he can be neither seen nor heard by any of them.
It's too bad it wasn't the same for the audience.
Agreed.
Buffy seems to think he has wandered off and goes to look for him. He tries to follow, but he can't even do that right, and ends up separated.
Oz finds out that he is turning into a werewolf, despite there being no moon.
And he tells Willow to get away from him, but she is dumb and just stays there.
And then he scratches her and runs away.
Does that mean that she's going to be a werewolf too?
Is it bitten or scratched?
It should be either one. I don't know, they can make up their own stuff. Xander finds a mirror and finds that he can still see his reflection, but a severed head tells him that it can see him too, which was kind of cool.
Willow tries her guidance spell, which appears to work at first, but then little CGI sparkles turn feral and start attacking her.
She shouts for Oz, and some of them go in her mouth.
I thought that was going to lead somewhere.
Me too. Buffy hears Willow shouting and busts down a door to find her, but ends up falling into the basement, which she conveniently clarifies out loud.
I must be in the basement.
And zombies start popping out of the ground to rip her apart, while she's being mocked by other dead people.
Giles and Anya get to the house and find the door still missing. Luckily, Giles has brought a self-starting chainsaw that he immediately puts to work.
I thought it was a pretty funny moment.
Okay.
Buffy manages to escape the zombies
by putting up a very pathetic fight.
She escapes through a little door and ends up in the attic with Oz, Willow, and Xander, who they can now see again.
How she knew she was in the attic, I don't know.
I'm upstairs.
Buffy says that all of them being so scared somehow made them all end up in the same place, like they were being guided by something.
And Xander finds the book the mystic pattern is from. Willow says it's a summoning spell for the demon Gaknar,
which feeds on fear.
and is trying to break through.
Buffy says they need to get everyone out, and Giles busts in with Anya.
And his chainsaw.
And he says they can't allow the demon to become fully manifested.
He reads from the book and starts saying that if they destroy the symbol, but before he can finish the sentence, Buffy runs over and smashes the symbol. But then Giles finishes the sentence and says that destroying the symbol will cause the demon to be summoned immediately.
Why wouldn't Giles have immediately finished the sentence or told Buffy to stop?
Yeah.
I get that it was supposed to be funny, but as usual, the show wields its humor like a blunt object.
Instead of nice, clean cuts with a chainsaw.
The demon emerges dramatically,
looking like a rejected Cenobite,
and it turns out to be very small.
Which everyone finds very amusing, despite the fact that it's already caused all of this mayhem.
And seemingly killed so many people.
And there's no reason why it can't keep doing that.
Again, it was supposed to be funny, but it wasn't really. And then Buffy stomps him out of existence.
Later, they're all back at Giles' house eating candy, where Anya reveals she dressed up as a rabbit because they frightened her.
And Giles tells them he translated the inscription under the image in the book, which says actual size. LOL. Fear itself, overall.
While this episode was stupid, it is the first one in the season that gave me hope for the rest of it. Even though we've seen pretty much this exact premise in Nightmares, this one was better than that. At least the part once they were headed to the party, which unfortunately was at the halfway point. The stuff before that was rehashing the same old shit, with Buffy finding every possible opportunity to wallow in self-pity, and every other character having to constantly give her pep talks and repel her feeble attempts to drag them down with her. Having her literally run out of the room after seeing Parker was so stupid, and having Joyce show up for 2 minutes to contribute nothing new was disappointing. Timing is a critical element of humor that this show regularly botches, but this one was not as bad as past episodes. Would you agree?
I'm not influencing your score.
Oh, I already have my score.
I would agree.
Some character development that feels natural at this point is between Anya and Xander, even though I hate Xander. Some character development that did not feel natural was Willow's sudden outburst at being a sidekick. Even if she does feel that way, there has been really no buildup of resentment towards Buffy, at least none that I can think of.
Or even any actual reason to feel that way.
I'm guessing they'll continue with this arc instead of saying it was just the house. It would make a lot more sense to say it was just the house, somehow. But what a shoehorned way to introduce this conflict. That's not even a conflict, but that's what the show does, so I'm not really surprised. If it wasn't for Buffy's typical moaning and groaning for the whole first half, this episode would have been better. It was like the writers had a solid idea, but were forced to throw in the standard stupid melodrama because, well, this is Buffy. I gave this one a B.
I gave it a C+. I thought this was a very middling episode, which at least means that this season has been more consistent in quality than the previous ones so far. Buffy still moped, but I didn't think it was as overblown as it usually is.
Oh, I disagree.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you talk about it, it was there a lot still.
You must just repress it every time it happens.
Maybe, that's possible. I liked that they referenced so many earlier episodes, and that this episode actually had more of a focused problem for them to deal with, but these characters are still irritating, so I didn't really want to see them be the ones to deal with it.
And it's too bad, because Willow was on a really good upswing for a while.
Yeah, but then they didn't know where to go.
So they made her Buffy's roommate.
There was an attempt at more humor than usual in this episode, but without much success of it actually being funny. But I agree that it wasn't as bad as some of the humor in previous episodes. And I had some questions once the episode was over. Did all the other people in that house die? Is Willow going to be a werewolf now? When the hell is something going to come of those dumb military guys that seem to operate right out in the open?
I want Parker to be in charge of them.
Oh, man. And why couldn't the writers have taken this opportunity to make Xander actually disappear? The fact that this season so far has been so bland does mean that it's been better than usual.
What a compliment.
Yeah, but it's also been duller than usual, I think. I feel like when the episodes are bad, at least, I don't know.
We have something to talk about?
Yeah, I really hope we get some kind of interesting ongoing plotline started soon, other than Buffy moping about Parker. But I'm worried that it'll be just more of the same.
So stay tuned as we continue to torture ourselves.